Hello, sir. Again, this is John. So now we're going on to week 7 assignment. So basically, is when should we perform trigger work? Well, trigger work is going to be performed when you squeeze a trigger and something is going on with the rifle, whether it's not firing, it's not going on safe, or even if you put it on safe and it fires. Those are issues that we have to keep in keep track of. We need to fix immediately. Those are things we just cannot turn a blind eye to and say leave it for later. Um, so problems you can encounter with improper triggers or improper trigger assemblies is when people or gunsmiths in general, they try to force these pins inside. Forcing these pins inside will damage the interior of the actual disconnector, the inside of the where the assembly moves. What it does is it creates ridges, it creates imperfections, which causes everything in here to sit not properly, and it could cause damage or even break inside. So when working on triggers, you gotta use the pins. You gotta use your guide pins. Make sure everything's level. Make sure you're doing everything softly. If you're forcing it in, you're not doing it correctly, and it's gonna cause problems in the future. Um, so again, like I said, improper trigger work is basically an individual who thinks they can put in a trigger, but they don't do the research. Every weapon is different. Every trigger is assembled different. Everything is different in every firearm. Now, if you get for example, you get a 6 hour. It comes with a stock trigger. You buy another gun, 6 hour stock trigger. Those stock triggers are going to be basically the same thing, or the same process, same build, same manufacturer settings. But once you go into the modified triggers, you go into those quick triggers, you go into those 2 pound, 1 pound, half a pound triggers. Those springs, the way those springs are designed to go inside the lower receiver is a lot different. Right now you have basically two springs. You have your actual hammer spring and your trigger spring. I know there's other brands out there like 6 hour where they have 3 or 4 springs. Each one serves its own purpose, giving it that easier tension, faster trigger squeeze, etc. So it really all depends. Usually, when I'm gonna do trigger work, it's because one, something's wrong with the trigger squeeze. Either you're squeezing, it's not firing, or you have it on safe and it fires. Those are the two big issues. Other things maybe is when you're firing and the pins come out. I just had a buddy of mine bring me his Smith and Wesson that he's the pistol. He's firing it, and the actual trigger pin hold the trigger pin is falling out when he fires. So he's gonna bring that to me. I'm gonna go ahead and look over that, make sure that the pin isn't damaged in any way, make sure that the actual um, tensioners are not damaged. Anything that inside may be damaged, I'm gonna go ahead and replace for him and get him back going. So usually when you're inspecting the actual AR, so again, this is just the lower half. I don't need the upper half. Um, what we're gonna be inspecting generally is gonna be, if I can get this right, it's gonna be all this right here. So you're gonna check your disconnect, which is here. You're gonna check your sears. You're gonna check your springs. You're gonna check your hammer. Okay, now why are we checking those? Because these are the parts that take the most impact and the most friction throughout this whole process. Without this piece, this is kind of like the ignition switch of everything. Without these functioning properly, the rifle's not going to fire. It's not going to function, and it will discharge on itself if the sear is worn down, which is this part right here on top of the disconnect. This is part of the sear. So this is what holds the actual, as you can see there, it holds the hammer. If that's been worn down, no matter how many times, even if I hit it with this pin like this, it's gonna go forward and cause a malfunction. So those are the kind of things we look for. Also, you're gonna look for increased buildup of carbon, dirt, debris, broken parts, rocks, anything can get in here. The purpose of that is you're gonna clean out all that stuff. Now, to clean it out, you're gonna have to take the trigger apart. You're gonna have to clean the space where this disconnect sits, because it is a big space. The disconnect sits like in a grooved slot in here, and if there's a lot of buildup of carbon and other materials in there, it's going to keep it from engaging. It's because it sits like this and it goes like that. Now, if you have a excessive buildup, it's going to keep it from moving back and forth. That's going to cause a malfunction. It can cause it to break. It can cause it to break any other parts in the gun. So And in general, for par four, it it all depends on the modification. You know, I think the harder modifications is going to be the trigger, only because it is a lot of parts. It is sometimes you have to drill an extra hole for another pin on a different type of trigger assembly. So it all depends on how good you are with the tools. For me, the hardest work is going to be threading. I believe is going to be threading compensators for actual suppressors. You know, because it's kind of you have to be very precise with the actual lathe machine and all that stuff. Trigger assemblies, I'm pretty good at. Um, Putting on, like, I'm gonna go ahead and add this immaculate um, buttstock collapse thing. Um, that's gonna be here pretty soon, so I'm gonna add that. I'm pretty handy. Yeah, I think it's gonna come more to the precision kind of stuff where it's gonna be difficult, just like anybody else. You know, if you haven't done it, it's difficult until you've had enough practice, had enough time to trial and error on your own weapons, or weapons that have been discontinued, broken, or you can afford to mess up. That's how you're gonna build that knowledge and that experience. But other than that, like it all depends on how much time you put into being a gunsmith and doing the work and the repairs to be knowledgeable and be proficient. Other than that, if you're trying to do this here and there, you're gonna run the risk of messing something up eventually. Um, so that wraps up my week 7 assignment. I'll be more on to week 8. Thank you for your time.